everyone, and welcome to this evening's episode of Everything Woman. I'm your host, Kandace Bharath-Nahous, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. On Sunday, we celebrated Motherhood, and I know that is normally a time that we look at our moms or the mother figures in our lives, and we celebrate them and their sacrifices and acknowledge their struggles as they just try to cope with everyday life and be a mother at the same time. So today we decided to sit down with two moms, Jodi, Mohammed, and Sasha, Ramcharan. And these are moms with a particular struggle. They don't just have to deal with everyday life and dealing with everything that comes with taking care of their young ones. They also have breast cancer. They've been diagnosed more recently with breast cancer. So we're going to sit down. They are in studio today, and we're going to sit down and we're going to discuss their diagnosis, their treatment, but also their struggles in navigating motherhood as they cope with just trying to deal with what they're going through. So stay tuned. When we come back, we are joined with Jodi, Mohammed, and Sasha Ramcharan. Hi guys, and we're back. If you missed the intro, we're sitting down this evening with Jodi, Mohammed, and Sasha Ramcharan, and they are not just friends of mine from over the years, they are also moms with a particular struggle, as they have both been diagnosed more recently with cancer, breast cancer that is. So, hi guys, good evening, and thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
How are you all feeling today?
Tired, but good.
How are you feeling,
Excited
Jodi?
to be here.
I'm okay. Yeah, tired is something that you feel. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like
General
second
sense
nature,
of
second.
tiredness, yes.
And Jodi, I know that you were a radio announcer.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about that.
Wow, I started off 21 years ago on
wow.
radio. I remember, in high school. I don't know what I wanted to do, honestly, but I always loved music. I remember being 11 years old and listening to the radio back then, and do you know what a cassette is? I would put the cassette in, and I would play a song from the radio, record it, and speak with a microphone.
But you definitely have the radio voice down.
Thanks. Actually, as you say that, my son, if I teacher once said to me, he said, one day you will be on radio or TV, and I said, I would never do that.
Oh wow, and look at you.
And in secondary school, actually, that's when I decided, my teachers advised me, I was like, everybody know what they want to do. And they said, Jodi, you should try. But I was so nervous just about just the matter of being on radio and people listening to you. I was like, I don't know if I could do that, but...
And you did it, and everybody loved you.
Definitely.
Thanks.
And Sasha, just before, I know your history is a little colorful.
Yes, so I was a legal secretary, and when I was diagnosed, I was actually a virtual paralegal.
Right.
But upon diagnosis, I was fired.
Right.
So even now, I'm still in treatment. So to find somebody to hire me when I need like maybe 2-3 days out of the month to go to clinic and then with the kids and treatment, it's difficult. So right now I am unemployed, but I've been doing like the paparazzi sales and stuff for fundraising and as a source of income.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I know that I had some of your paparazzi, and honestly, it was really, really amazing.
Thank you.
And later on, we will talk a little bit about that, so you guys
Sure.
could hit Sasha up and support her fundraising efforts. And you guys are both moms, right?
Yes.
So you are a mom, Jodi, of two kids. Well, I don't know if you'll call the older one a kid, but...
Well, that's a big age gap. But I still call them kids, right?
Right.
Yeah, I do. One is 18 and the other is 4.
Right. And
I'm a mom of 4 kids, 7 years, 5 years, and 2-year-old twins.
wow. I sit down here with you all, and I genuinely, I say this every show, and almost every show, and it probably sounds a little bit bad, but I don't know how moms do it, because I genuinely struggle so much just to try to keep up with everything in life that, hats off to moms, and belated Mother's Day greetings to all the mummies. You guys, I know motherhood is sometimes a thankless job, but you guys do, I think you guys just go above and beyond. So, Jude, we're gonna jump right into your. Sorry, I call her Jude sometimes because she's my friend, but I'll try to stick to Jodi.
That's fine.
Jodi, you tell us a little bit about your diagnosis.
I was diagnosed back in probably mid-July 2021.
Right.
I noticed about maybe, let's say about 9 months before that, I was feeling very ill. And I would just constantly be tired every day. I would be in pain. Like my left arm in particular, I would have excruciating pain.
Oh, wow.
It was so bad that when I lift my daughter up, I'd feel to faint.
Wow.
And I actually did not know what it was. And then I would come home from work and I'd be really, really, really tired. But I'm just thinking it's because I'm hustling, being a single mom at the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, taking care of Cassie. She was really young. And then going to work and picking her back up and coming home and just doing everyday duties as a mom. A working mom that is too. I just figured, you know, it must have just been that. But then I realized that I was gaining weight too. But how could you gain weight more on your left side more than the right side? So I remember one night I was talking to my mom on the phone. It was a Wednesday. I don't ever forget, like 10 o'clock. And I said, Mom, it's so strange that I know I gain weight because during the pandemic, of course, everybody was eating.
Yeah.
I was just baking and eating and, you know, eating so many different things.
You don't make anything for me.
I will soon. But anyway, I noticed that, you know, I had a big, like a lump under my left arm.
And was it painful?
It was very painful.
Okay.
I couldn't even use my arm, and I kept telling my coworker every morning, he's like, maybe you need to go to the doctor. I'm like, I don't know why, but this arm is paining me so much, but why is it bigger here than here? And then I told my mom on the phone, and because cancer is something in our family, she said, what are you feeling? I said, Mom, it's paining me, and it's paining. I don't want to squeeze it. She said, press it. And when I did, I felt lumps. So I got a little bit scared, but I didn't panic, of course, because I'm not a doctor, so I can't diagnose myself, right? She said, you need to go to the doctor immediately. Yeah. And that was the Wednesday, Thursday, I went to the doctor. They scheduled me right away this Saturday to do an ultrasound. And my doctor literally panicked when he saw the ultrasound. And of course, if you read it, when they have something called lesions or something like that, you know it is definitely there. And he didn't actually want to come out and tell me. He said, you need to speak to a surgeon right away. So the Monday, I called the surgeon. I saw him on Tuesday, and the Wednesday, I had a lumpectomy.
Wow. And what is that? What is a lumpectomy?
A lumpectomy is basically, well, they wanted to do a biopsy, just put the big needle down and test it.
Right.
But my father said, you know what, if I do have lumps, they should remove it right away, just in case to be safe. And they removed the lumps. So lumpectomy is basically when they remove the lumps. And so they tested it. So they said they would get the results within 2 weeks or so. So 2 weeks passed, I went back, it was not ready. So I panicked a little bit. And the third week when I went back, that's when they told me I tested positive. One of the lumps were positive. And
positive, what did they say? Like positive for what?
The doctor just said one was positive. And first I thought he said, you're okay. And he said, you know, and then I said, positive, what do you mean? And my fiance at the time, he was with me, he came to Trinidad, and he said, what do you mean positive? He said, no, she's positive, she has cancer.
Wow.
You know, and he said, and when he said that, honestly, like, I just got really quiet for a couple of seconds, and you could just see tears.
Yeah, of
just rolling. Because, you know, to be, you know, I was so busy before that in my life, I'd never think about this. I've interviewed people on radio about cancer. I never thought it would happen to me.
Of course. It's not one of those things that you think would happen to you.
No. And I felt like my entire world just shattered.
Of course.
You know. And then he said, you know what, there's treatment, there are ways to take care of this. And he said the best thing to do is, you know, do a mastectomy. So he gave me some time, you know, he said, take some time to think about it and whatever. And I think I got married like 4 days later.
Wow.
Yeah, my fiance was here at the time, and he said, you know what, let's not wait.
Yeah.
Let's get married right away. And I was like, no, I don't think so, because I was so afraid.
Yeah.
Because I mean, being diagnosed with cancer, you think this is the end of it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make it. Why would you, you know? And I was like, so we did it, and within 2 weeks or so after that, 2 or 3 weeks after, I had the mastectomy done, and they gave me like about 2 months to heal, and then I started the chemotherapy.
Okay, and I know that you had a really, really rough time with the chemotherapy.
Yeah, because it's aggressive cancer, they gave me aggressive, they said the treatment had to be very aggressive.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it was not easy. What I look like now is nothing compared to what I looked like back in 2021, the end of 2021 into 2022, early last year.
Right.
The treatment was really bad. Like after you take the first session, all your hair, it falls off. I literally cut my hair to prepare myself for it.
Was that it?
Yes, my hairdresser came and
You look so cute.
and even though she was so, if you like what she was saying to me, she's such an amazing person, Sherry Karam. She's my hairstylist, and she was cutting it, and she was telling me all these positive things. You know, you're so strong, and I'm like, I don't want to cry. I just want to be okay with it. I want to be strong. You know, I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to be one of those people to just cry. I just want to give myself some time.
Yeah.
But it still didn't hit me then.
I feel like at that point, like so many things are happening so fast, you don't even like, you can't even process it.
No, and it was still, it seems surreal to me. But when I actually took the first session, even though I cut my hair, all of that was falling out. It was hair everywhere, on my pillows, on my towel, it was everywhere. But that, within 2 hours of taking that, I was literally passing out.
Wow.
I could not. So I couldn't even speak like after the second day. I was just bed rest. I was just throwing up night and day. I would pass out. It was horrible. And I like for the first week or so, I would be down completely. It would take me a few days to catch. I didn't even know myself. I couldn't eat because everything tastes like metal, like in your mouth. You throw up constantly. Nothing tastes good. It was so bad. And I just couldn't take it. It was a lot. And then I had to take care of my daughter too, which I did.
Yeah.
Even though I was taking treatment, you know, I was still doing everything for her.
Wow.
Yeah. And this pain never goes away when you have a mastectomy because you remove the lymph nodes.
So you have pain like up to basically now?
Yeah, I live with it. But I try not to take it on because the world we live in is very stressful already. And I have my daughter to take care of. So I don't want to focus on it. It is there. It's something that I have to live with. So I just live with it. You know.
So you said that you made the decision. You said you couldn't take it. What does that mean?
So when I took the first session of chemo, it was bad. The second session was okay. You take literally like 3 weeks or so to try to get over it until your body actually starts getting over it a little bit. And then they push you right back into another session of it. So when I took the third session, I could not get up. I couldn't walk for like 4 footsteps without shaking and holding on. It was bad. It was really bad. I remember going to the washroom and I would pass out. I would be up all night throwing up. It was terrible.
God, I'm so sorry that you had to go through something like that.
And then you have to get injections in your stomach. So like every day I had to get an injection, and it's blood test after blood test. And that one was so bad the last session because my body was not taking the chemo that they had to pump it in so it burned.
Right.
Yeah, and actually now the chemo has shrunk my veins. So my veins got very thin and it causes poor circulation. You can't fix that.
And I know we have to take a break shortly and we'll continue this conversation, but you made the decision to stop your chemotherapy.
After the third session, yes. I wanted to take a break because my mom literally told me, she said, if you continue this, you would die.
Wow.
It was that bad.
And I can't imagine how difficult it was for you to make that decision to stop your chemotherapy.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about my kids.
Yeah.
You know, I have to be there for them, but at the same time, I didn't want to live like that. It was hard.
Gosh. Guys, I hate to pause at this point, but we're gonna take a break. I think all of us gonna compose ourselves, so definitely speaking for myself. And when we come back, we're gonna continue with Jodi's story and we're gonna hear a little bit from Sasha. Stay tuned. And we're back. And just before we took our break, we were having a conversation with Jodi Mohammed. And Jodi was talking about her breast cancer diagnosis. Jodi's a mom of 2. And she was actually, at the point we took the break, she was talking about her incredibly difficult decision to stop her chemotherapy because of how incredibly ill it was making her. Jodes, how you doing, girlie? Okay, holding up? All of us here genuinely trying to keep it together because this is a tough one. And the thing is, like, I know Jodi and Sasha from before their diagnosis, so honestly, they're like my friends, and knowing that, you know, they're going through this really is so heartbreaking. So Jodes, I know that you were saying that you were passing out, you were vomiting day and night, you couldn't eat anything. I think you also, your nails and
my nails were completely black. My fingernails, my toenails, my tongue.
Is that a normal, right, so it's a normal side effect of chemo that nobody really talks about?
So side effects on chemo, like a lot lot of people don't talk about everything.
Right.
A lot of people just, people expect the nausea and the vomiting
Right.
and so on.
And the hair loss.
So my nails, I finished chemo April last year. My nails, if I don't keep them this short, they're just tearing up. If I happen to catch it on, and it hurts a
They're
lot.
very
So I have to
brittle.
remember to make sure that I keep it this low.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's
That was
some
mine.
photos of Joe's.
Yeah, that was my tongue. It was actually my fingernails, my toenails. It took a very long time to grow out, and they actually they left them very bumpy,
Right.
very uneven. But I had very brittle nails as well for a long time. You could not grow it just a little bit because they'd tear like paper.
Wow.
Because you see, again, everybody's different. So if you take a pill, it will affect you in a different way.
Yeah.
It would affect me. So some people will take the same treatment, but it has different effects on everybody else. They say, for instance, if you get really, really sick while you're pregnant, right?
Right.
When you take chemo, it's similar.
Oh.
So somebody said that to me, and she was absolutely right about it.
Yeah.
A teacher actually who took the chemo while I was taking it. And it was so true because I was very ill when I was pregnant.
Ah.
And it was just as bad because the nausea, it never goes away. It's like you sleep with it, you get up with it, you go to bed with it, you throw up constantly.
And you were doing that all the while taking care of a toddler.
Yes,
Wow.
it was difficult, but it's my job.
Yeah.
I didn't want anybody to take care. I wanted to do it.
Of course.
There she is.
Oh, she's so cute, Cassidy.
She's been
Is she a rock?
she is.
Okay. And we're talking about specifically decision to stop. What were your considerations when you were like, okay, I can't do this anymore?
I actually decided. Actually, my mom helped me make that decision because she
Right.
was taking care of me at the time, and honestly, she was the best. She would do. I don't mean to cry.
Yeah.
Sorry to cry. I couldn't eat. So if it was, she had to make 3 different dishes. She would make it so I could eat. She would give me different things. If I did not drink it, she would try something else. And she would constantly give me different things to make sure I had something. And then I realized, you know what, I need to take a break. Even if I decide to go back and, I have to take care of myself too, right? But at that point, I had to take a break. Because I was thinking to myself, if I'm doing this, what's going to happen to my kids, especially my 4-year-old?
Yeah.
It was something, and she used to feel, like, are you okay, Mommy? And she would cry. Even when I lost my hair, she said, Mommy, you're still beautiful. She would tell me things like that. And as young as she was at the time, she would understand that I was really sick. And I will tell you, chemo treatment, they don't tell you, it is the worst treatment ever. The side effects are horrible. And what they don't tell people is some people actually die from treatment because it's that harsh. So at that point, my mom told me, she said, every day it's really hard and you should take a break. And that's when I went to my GP and he told me, he said the treatment was too strong for me.
Right.
He said it was definitely too strong and take a break and, get another diagnosis for it. So I just chose to take a break.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping to, I have plans to migrate.
Right.
So to get treatment and to continue dealing with it because, I have my kids
Yeah.
as well
Of course.
to live for, but the treatment is horrible.
God, I genuinely have no words. I feel like cancer is one of our worst fears. I think that as one of the things that we all live hoping that we never have to hear. And every day you genuinely hear. Up to like last night, I woke up with a message that somebody close to me knows has cancer. Somebody, it's always somebody, and it's
Besides
young
that,
people.
In Trinidad, I think the people are very ignorant to how many cases we have
Yeah.
and how young. I have people thinking that 40 years is too. A doctor told somebody, a general practitioner told somebody they were too young to have cancer at 40 years. That's nonsense.
That's insane.
I met an advocate at St. James and she said in a week time they lost 3 patients who were 16 years old with 3 different cancers at St. James. People are not taking it seriously. And like in terms of Jodi's, I'm so sorry you had such a terrible experience. But so chemotherapy is horrible. But the thing is, every person is different,
Yeah.
right? But like how you had such a terrible reaction, they can lower the dosage. They can change up the meds instead of stopping treatment,
Yeah.
They just
right?
give you medication.
Yeah,
they just
no,
kept
but-
giving me medication. Nothing
So
was
this is the
helping
thing,
me.
different doctors take different approaches.
Yeah.
And I have met people who were in similar situations, but because the cancer was aggressive, they say, okay, no, we're not going to stop, but they lower the dosage.
Yeah.
So, you know, to make it, but you can't get around it, right? Cancer treatment is hell.
Yeah.
You know, it's hell. You can't get around it. And I mean, some people are blessed that I have met people who worked right through treatment and said they
Wow.
were just a bit nauseous and they were tired, but other people flat in bed
Yeah.
had to have people bathe them, feed them, everything. So everyone is different. So
So Tash, you were 34 when you were diagnosed,
correct.
right?
I was 2 weeks away from my 34th birthday, so I had to.
And how did you find out, or how did you realize you had
So
cancer?
I was having dinner and I brushed off a lump, right? And I brushed off some crumbs from my clothes and I felt a hard marble lump.
Yeah.
And similar to Jodi, so I have a family history, but it's in medical terms, it's considered as a far family history.
Right.
So I never did screening and stuff before this. And leading up to that, now in a week time, I started, it was very hot. The area was very painful, as Jodi said, under my arm. It had already spread to under my arm at that point. But I didn't know that. I was just getting a lot of pain and stuff. So I went to Cancer Society, and if you're not 40 yet, you have to do an ultrasound.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
So-
Not a mammogram.
No,
Right,
yeah.
correct. So they did an ultrasound, and the thing is, they found 2 lumps, the one I was feeling and one that I wasn't. So I looked at the doctor, and you know, you could see the concern on his face.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, so we're going to schedule a biopsy next week Tuesday. This would have been a Friday. So the next Tuesday I went in, and when I went in now, they're not finding 2 lumps, they're finding 1 large mass. So I looked at the doctor doing the biopsy. I was like, no, I saw 2 lumps on the screen. This is what's going on. He was like, okay, we're going to do the biopsy, don't worry about it. But again, I can see by his look, he checked back the ultrasound, and because this is not what they found on
Yeah.
Friday. So a week later, I got the biopsy results, but I had been reading up and so on. And when I walked in, I just looked at the doctor's face. I was like, it's cancer. And he was taken aback. He was like, how do you know? I was like, no, I know it's cancer. I was like, what are we going to do to deal with it? You know, because from that, it had nothing, for me, it had nothing like, okay, I'm going to get lost here, because my kids are very, very small. So another cancer warrior was telling me, you know, you go into fight mode. And
Yeah.
I literally felt like, okay, this is a war that I'm going into.
Like
and
a
I
primitive
need to,
sort of
yes,
thing that I have
yes,
to do this
exactly.
for my kids.
I walked out of Cancer Society, my mind already moving, okay, so I know I don't have the money to do treatment, because I know treatment is going to be expensive. I didn't know how the inner workings of the public health care and all these different things. Thinking about what fundraisers can we possibly do, how are we going to do, and the people that I had in my mind walking out of Cancer Society was going to stand by me and ensure that I got the best treatment ever. It did not work out that way.
Were not the people
Right,
that
yes.
supported you?
So it turned out being that it was just my husband and I. And so I started treatment. And the thing is, I was told that they could not give me a date. I met the doctor at St. James, and everybody is telling me, listen, a Ki-67 is something they use to determine how aggressive your cancer is, right? So high is 20% minus 70%, right? So all the doctors was like, you need to start chemotherapy right now, but we can't give you a date yet. And I'm like, okay, so what do I do? But I never stopped. I was like, okay, you can't give me a date. I went to Sandy Grande. They were like, all right, we can give you a date 2 weeks earlier than the date St. James is
Yeah.
giving you, but they were booked as well. $50,000 was the cost for one session. I don't have $50,000.
Yeah.
And that's when I went to social media and I started posting.
And I could pause you
I'm
for a second.
sorry, yes.
No, just to remind our viewers, you had mentioned earlier that you got fired upon diagnosis. I know it's not something we can go into, but
no, yeah.
it adds to the context of,
Right,
oh my gosh,
so-
how am I going to do this?
Right. So I was working as a virtual paralegal,
Right.
which was amazing for me because I have these little kids, so I could be home with them, and you know that time school was online and so on. And my boss, they just didn't want to deal with the fact that I would have off days, because everybody is telling them, you know, chemotherapy is going to have you flat in bed. I literally told her that if I had to work from bed, I would do it, because nobody would need to see me virtually once I
Yeah.
could draft my documents.
You're
That's
virtual
all
in
that-
any case.
Yeah. So, you know, but they didn't want to hear that. So I was fired within a month of
Your
they
diagnosis.
found because I would have found out the beginning of
yeah.
December. She unofficially fired me the last day of the year in December and officially fired me 2 weeks later.
That is horrific.
So I am going through EOC and industrial court, but our system takes too long.
Yeah.
Because it's a year now, and I now had case management, and I'm being told hearing and so on is next year, March and June. So, you know. So, yeah, so I went into, after my Facebook post and so on, and trying to raise money, a doctor from St. James, somebody had a cancellation or something. They fit
Wow.
me in, and they called me to start. So I started the end of December. And similar to Jodi, so my hair was nearly waist length when I was diagnosed, but I was reading about the day I was diagnosed. The next morning I got up and I cut my hair short. I was like, okay, we're not going to go through long locks falling down all over the place.
Exact thing.
right?
I did that too, yeah.
And so most people would tell you that your hair starts to drop 2 weeks after the first session. But for me, 5 days after, my whole head was on fire.
Wow.
It was hurting. And my youngest, well, at the time, the twins would have just been a year and 3 months, right? So his habit was to hold my hair to sleep.
Oh my gosh.
So that was real painful. So my husband had to give me this G.I. Joe, kind of G.I. Jane look. And, you know, so my 3 younger kids, you know, they looked at me a little strange. But my eldest, he started to cry. And it was really hard for him because, I mean, we were so close. I mean,
And
we're
he's
still so
older,
close.
so
Yes,
in
he's
a
the
way he
oldest,
knows
exactly.
kind of what's going on.
And then when I had to, like when it reached the exact 12-day mark, my hair started dropping like crazy. And I was like, okay, this not working out. So I took my husband's machine and I just
Shaved it.
shaved it off. I was like, okay. And he cried for 3 days. Like every time I walked into the room, he ran out. And it was really hard. And treatment, as Jodi said, chemo is not an easy thing. And the twins, so they weren't breastfeeding at that point, but they were still waking up in the night for bottles and stuff. And it's just my husband and I, and they didn't want him.
Yeah.
And I was telling a friend last week that there were nights, so I did chemo and go and have to walk these children in the night to sleep. And I walking up and down and I am praying to God, God, don't let me drop these children.
Oh.
And I just praying to get through the night and like, okay, they go back to sleep, make it back to the bed and somebody crying again. And it was crazy to deal with everything and all, but we did it. And then, so similar, for some reason, a lot of people I spoke to, sorry.
Sash, can I pause you? So guys,
Yeah.
we have to take a quick break. And when we come back, Sasha is going to continue to tell us about her, what I think sounds like an ordeal in terms of her treatment and how it would have impacted her. Stay tuned when we come back. And we're back. And we're sitting down here. We have in studio with us Jodi Mohammed and Sasha Ramcharan. And they're both moms, young moms, who have been diagnosed with cancer within the last few years. And just before the break, we stopped off where we were speaking to Sasha. And she was telling us about her treatment and, you know, just things that, like, just before
Yes,
we were
so,
speaking about
yeah.
you having to feed your kids, your toddlers in the middle of the night.
So one of the expected side effects everybody thinks you're going to have is vomiting.
Of chemo,
and,
right?
Of chemo,
Right, that's
sorry. Is diarrhea and so on. And so I remember, so my husband still had to go to work and stuff. I mean, he tried to be around as much as possible.
Right, of
but
course.
I mean, you have to work, I'm not working. And I remember having terrible diarrhea and I was in the washroom, the door locked, and the twins were literally banging down the door. And what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What am I going to do, you know? And there were days that we just basically survived, literally survived. And I was feeling really bad. I was like, how am I doing this? What is going on? And she was like, surviving, the day is a win. She was another breast cancer warrior, you know? And then, so I would have done chemo. And so I did all my chemo first. And then I would have had my first surgery in June. So I initially wanted a double mastectomy, but different surgeons have different schools of thought. So I was allowed to do a single mastectomy. First, I did an expander placement because we did talk about possibly doing reconstruction and lymph node clearance. Sorry. Unfortunately, I got a terrible infection, right? So I had there's a drain they put when you do the mastectomy for the fluids and so on. I had it for 3 weeks, and then they realized I had a massive infection. So my entire incision was opening up, and it was swollen, and So I was like literally screaming as if I was in labor to get out of bed, how bad it was. My husband didn't want to touch me because he was scared that he was going to hurt me.
Yeah.
So St. James was closed. I had to go to Sandy Grande to meet my surgeon there. So I was admitted for 3 or 4 days. I had IV antibiotics for 3 times for the day, and they finished the mastectomy. Had a long wait to start radiation. This year I actually did radiation, and I am hormone positive, which means that my cancer feeds off of hormone receptors, right? So I'm ER positive, so I have to do hormone treatment. Mine is for 5 years. Hormone treatment is something else that is very downplayed until you're in it, and these side effects are horrible. I know people in Trinidad who have stopped it because their quality of life has diminished so much because people play it off as nothing, but when you have side effects similar to rheumatoid arthritis and you are having emotional mood swings every day and you are shouting at the people that you love because you are overwhelmed.
Of course.
Correct.
I mean, I feel
What?
like even without the hormone,
right,
like
it's, yeah, it's a lot.
was it hormone therapy?
Yes, hormone
Yeah,
therapy, yes.
you would. It is so overwhelming. Like I know you had mentioned just actually as we're on that counseling.
Yes. So the thing is, at each clinic, there is counseling services available. The problem is they do not refer you unless they think that you're struggling. The thing is with a lot of cancer patients, I know people who are struggling day to day, but they don't want anybody to know they're struggling
Yeah.
day to day.
Correct.
So I
A
think
lot of people do that.
it should be a mandatory thing. Once you are diagnosed, you should have minimum of 6 sessions, one every month. And if the person thinks you need more, they add on more because people need help navigating this.
True. I would agree and I would disagree actually.
Mm.
You see, support is very important.
Right.
I was looking at a documentary recently, and a doctor was saying that when you actually have support, it helps you to heal faster, and when you don't, you stay sick for longer. For me, for instance, as soon as I was diagnosed, everyone started telling me, you should start getting what is counseling, it's called, counseling basically, and you should start that, but I didn't want to.
Yeah.
So even though it could be mandatory, I think it's, every individual is different, and for me, talking about it made me feel worse.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do it.
Right.
For me to do it, I had to be ready to do it.
Yeah.
Because first thing you have to do is accepting this is it takes time. It took me very long to accept it that I had cancer.
You see, so that's another thing. I was talking to a doctor recently, and we were talking about my approach with everything, with cancer, and I told him,
Which is literally like head on.
right,
I'm going to
exactly,
do this.
yes. Because from the beginning, I told him, okay, look, because even in terms of me not wearing any bra or anything like that after, even my first mastectomy, I wasn't wearing any padding and anything, and people were very opposed to that for their own reasons. In my head, I have accepted this totally crappy thing has happened to me, right? And I have to deal with it, and I mean, that is the way that I look at it.
Yeah.
And just like Jodi too, as soon as I was diagnosed, somebody told me I'm going to need a psychiatrist, and I got upset.
You see?
Right? I didn't want to speak to a psychiatrist, but now after meeting so many patients, and there are people who have finished treatment, they are survivors, and they still have not wrapped their mind around what they have been through, right? And so this is why it is needed now. As Jodi is saying, not everybody is open to it, but I mean, different approaches maybe, but it should at least be on the table.
Because I feel like it's similar to regular therapy in a way, in that like, you need it to cope for some people, but some people, they seem to get by without speaking to somebody about certain things. They may deal with it in a different way, and not everybody is really ready to open up. Because I think sometimes you still also trying to figure out, like, you still trying to process what's happening to you.
Correct, yes. Yeah, because so like when I was diagnosed, while I was running around trying to figure out treatment, where I was working at the time, they said they needed all my reports and so on, right? And I was like, but why you need all my reports? And it's only after somebody was telling me all they needed was a letter stating my diagnosis. And I felt that was like an invasion of my privacy, because at that point I was now diagnosed, and yes, I was dealing with head on, but parts of me, I had my moments where I cried and break down when my kids were asleep, because like, how the hell, I have 4 kids and I have people who are healthy and strong and they have everything and they have no children. Like, so why it is I have to get cancer and go through, it's...
Honestly, I'll tell you, Sasha, and I've told you this before when we speak, and I mean this in the best way possible, when I'm having a bad day and when I feel overwhelmed and when I feel like some crappy thing has happened to me that's affecting my life significantly or significant to me, I genuinely think of you because I mean, I follow you on Facebook, I followed you. I mean, we've been friends from before.
Yes, yes.
And, you know, so I've followed your journey. And, you know, I tell my husband all the time. And you're like a household name for us because I'm like, wow at all the things that one person has to deal with in their life. But also the fact that I know to an extent, like I know you will have your down days and I know you will have your bad moments. But honestly, you know, I've seen the fierceness in you. And like even in terms of like if you need to have a procedure or if you need meds, you know, you're like, all right, how am I going to do this? I'm gonna, and I know when you were having your hormone therapy, you were also doing the pepperoni sales. And that all of that was despite the fact that you could hardly even move your hand. But you needed money to do this.
Exactly.
You needed the money for the dental clearance, or you know whatever it is your medical needs are. And I mean, I'm not disregarding anybody and their own experience, but honestly, you genuinely inspire me because when I feel like, wow, at my own little life, you know, those moments that you have where things are hard, I'm like, you know what? There are people like you out there with 4 kids, 2 of whom are toddlers, and trying to figure out the funds, trying to run the household, trying to do all the things that you have to do every single day, and still go to your chemotherapy, figure out how you're going to get to and from chemotherapy.
Exactly. So like, I know so it's 2 of us here, but in general, I think a lot of people don't understand how many mothers with cancer there are out there who are doing the same thing. And I have some amazing friends, and we were just talking in clinic the other day, and you get up and you go to work, you get up and you take care, because you have to do it. There is no choice. So the hormone treatment, because of the feeling like the joint pains and the rheumatoid arthritis, my friend was telling me, so she has to drop her child off to his practice, and she literally has to keep her mind on the fact she has to hold the steering wheel tight, because look, I can't close my hands, right? So hers is similar, and so if I don't think about what I'm holding, I drop things all the time. I went to the supermarket and I dropped a bag and people were laughing at me, but it's because I mean, to them I seem clumsy, you know, but I literally have to think about the fact that I'm holding something.
And that's why I think this episode is so important, because generally people don't acknowledge the struggles of moms in everyday life. You know, you just kind of accept, oh, a woman is supposed to do this. And even if she has to stay up all night with the baby and then go to work the next day and come back and do it all over again, sometimes with multiple kids, you know, we're like, oh, okay, that's normal. A mother should be doing that. And I mean, no offense to anybody, but a lot of the times, and I'm not saying all the time, like a father's role is so optional. I'm not saying it even applies to you guys. But so, you know, you all are just there dealing with this. And a lot of, as you said, a lot of moms are going through this. But we are just like, oh, well, that's just a mom being a mom. But you don't actually look at the things that you have to go through to just keep life moving while you're struggling yourself.
Exactly. And this is the thing, like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say, like, I remember when I took my second session of chemo, my daughter had surgery on both feet. So she couldn't walk, right? She was premature. And her both feet were in casts, and she couldn't walk, right? So you had to literally lift her up. I think you remember, right? I told you, I mentioned to you that
and
she
you could
had
have hardly lift her because you were in pain.
Correct, and I would do it. And because she couldn't walk, so I would do it. I was taking treatment, and I would pick her up. I would, you know, clean her up. I would do everything because it's my job. I am her mom. You know, and no matter what, I would still do it. I could, after surgery, I could barely lift my arm. And I would take her, my mom would be like, let me do it. And I'm like, no, it's okay, I can do it.
Always a superhero, Jodi.
No, I want to do it. I remember crying in the hospital for that same reason when I had the surgery. I was trying to walk and I couldn't walk because I was in so much pain. And the nurse was like, you know, it's okay. And my friend turned around and she's like, that's how she is. She always wants to do everything because I can do it. I can do it. My whole mind is I can do it. And even while with everything, I still took care of her. I still did everything. Even if I couldn't walk, I'd take 5-10 minutes. I would do it because it's my duty as her mom.
Do you all think that there are enough support systems for moms with cancer?
No.
So that's why, I would have been diagnosed in December, and before I even started chemo, I came up with the Fighting Chance page idea.
Right.
Now that's nowhere near where I wanted to be, but I made out an entire list. I actually want to have like daycare services and stuff that people could hire people at a reasonable cost. I
Yeah.
mean, we don't have any funds to do
Yeah,
it for
of
free.
course.
But for somebody to like vet it, of course, but to come to your home and help, because I spoke to another mom, her child was 8 years old and she was flat in bed and her 8-year-old was making her tea and sandwiches because they were home alone, right? And so you need somebody there, you need that help and support, and it's just, so like we have a support system. If you're sick, I think you can get a nurse through the government services to come home for 6 months or something. But I think we need stuff geared towards cancer specifically. Even in terms like I want to be able to have like frozen meals to be able to drop off for somebody, like frozen pizzas and stuff for the kids, meals for the family, because it is really hard and side effects last a long time. A lot of people think, okay, so you go through chemotherapy and once you see your hair start growing back,
Yeah.
you're good, you're looking. So I made it a rule to try and take care of myself. I didn't want to look sick. Right?
So you
Not a
always
matter of
like
whatever.
exercising.
Right. And going to chemo with red lipstick, even not putting on a mask, red lipstick under the mask and whatever.
But sometimes you have to do these things to just make yourself feel better as a woman.
Yes.
Correct. Even like when people see me, they would never think
You're
so.
always dolled up. Like that's
And actually, my mom, when I was taking treatment, I didn't want to take care of myself because I felt actually, I felt unattractive. I felt, especially losing my hair, that was rough for me. And my mom was like, this is not my daughter. She's like, get up and change your clothes. She's like, dress up.
Yeah.
She's like, take care of yourself. Why do you have yourself like that? And I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. And I started taking care of myself. So if I tell someone I was diagnosed or I'm still not well, they don't believe me because I don't look it.
Yeah.
But that's why they say never judge a book by its cover, because you don't know what a person is facing. And that's the same thing I used to say on radio too. Don't judge a person. If you see a person at work and they don't look happy or they're grumpy, still say good morning to them. Ask them if they're okay.
because you don't know what's going on in their own life.
Exactly. And dealing with cancer, being diagnosed, is not something anybody wants to hear.
Yeah.
It's the worst feeling in the world, especially when you're a mom and you have young kids.
Exactly.
Because you think about, nobody's going to take care of your kids like you. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to do it.
That's
So-
the fact. Yeah, that's a fact. And so that's the whole thing. Every mother that I speak to, even those who are lucky to have support, because I met some people who were blessed that family swooped in and did everything, so they just had to focus on treatment. But even still, who wants to leave their children? I have friends whose kids are almost adults, late teens, early 20s, but who wants to leave their children? They want to see them get married. They want to see their grandchildren, So, but the thing is, so throughout the whole thing, as you said, even though it is very hard, somebody accused me of making cancer seem not as hard as it is.
Wow.
And that I was doing my post for attention.
Wow.
Yeah, and I
hope you put them in their place.
So, but the thing is, the reason that I have been posting so much is that people fail to understand, because I have been very honest about all the crap as well, besides the whatever, fighting through it. And the reason I started exercising is because I couldn't make it from the bed to the kitchen and I have these children to run after. So I started doing, even if it was 5 minutes, and I built myself up because I needed to be able to take care of them. When they're climbing up and pulling down stuff, I can't be lying down in the bed. You know what I mean? But people need to take cancer more seriously. They need to take screening much more seriously.
And that's definitely a message we will have to give to our viewers. So guys, we're going to take our final break. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up this show. Stay with us. And we're back. And we're sitting down here speaking with Jodi, Mohammed and Sasha Ramcharan. And they're both moms who have been navigating motherhood simultaneous to their diagnosis and treatment of breast cancer. So just before we stopped off, you had a very important message, and that was one of screening.
Yes. So the thing is, a lot of people still think that you can only get cancer, one, if you have a family medical history. That's not correct. I have lost people very close to me who had no medical history, no family medical history, so that is wrong. Secondly, there are still people who think that you have to be old to have cancer. We have very young people with cancer and with very aggressive cancers. We
Honestly,
have pediatric
babies
cancer,
die from
right?
cancer.
We have
Kids
pediatric,
die from
right?
cancer.
Exactly. So people need to take screening more important. In terms, since we're talking about breast cancer, an oncologist actually told me if you have anybody with a family history, so let's say I was diagnosed, I started treatment at 34 years, anybody close to me would need to start their screening 5 years before that age, right? Yeah. So, I mean, they don't tell people these things.
I would not think
Right,
about
they
that,
don't. So, I mean, these are things we need, like Ministry of Health and so on, to have educational
Yeah.
programs and run them in every health center. We need more information out there.
You know, I think that, you know, we're dealing with breast cancer, and a lot of the women who are diagnosed are moms, and you know, I can't imagine how difficult it is to put yourself first as a mom and put your health first. And you know, somebody very wise once told me that if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And I mean, I know you all power through, and you all have been doing as best as you could, and like an amazing job at just doing everything that you have to do for your kids.
Right.
But at the same time, women really do need to prioritize pap smears, breast exams. And I'm going to mention this again, but at the end of the show, when we close off, stay tuned, because we're going to do, we have an informative video to show women how to do a breast self-exam. So please stay with us after the show for that. But, you know, have your regular screenings, because, I mean, I think it's common knowledge that from the time, if you are diagnosed earlier, you have a better outcome, or you have a better chance. I mean, you don't want to ignore something, or even if you're not feeling anything, still go to your doctor.
Yes, so many people are actually diagnosed with no lumps. They are only diagnosed, they only knew they had cancer when they did a screening. They felt nothing, they had no symptoms, nothing like that. A lot of people.
But some doctors, like I go to Dr. Shireen Kaloush, she's an obstetrician gynecologist, and part of the pap smear is actually a breast exam as well that they do. So I mean, I know some doctors, especially women's health doctors, they sort of prioritize that, and they probably know, okay, you don't really 100% know what you're gonna feel for. I mean, there are people, one of my best friends, she's a doctor, and in her late 20s, she felt a lump, and she found it pretty early on, and it's something that, unless for us it's painful, or unless it's something that's very obvious, most of us gonna miss it. And I mean, it's something that even I really, it's not something that I do. But you know, just this morning I was speaking to my sisters, because we found out somebody has cancer and they're young, and we're like, you know what, as women we have to start prioritizing our health. You know, and even just from a perspective of diet, because there are so many links, the science is there, that there's so many links with diet and the impact of things like sugar and red meat on certain types of cancer. And yes, okay, you could get cancer basically having the best diet in the world, but it also decreases your chance. So I think, you know, one of the things that we have to push, and I know you are definitely an advocate for that, Sasha, you post your meals, and I mean, she posts her meals, and it's very creative, but it's very healthy. You know, we really, I don't know how you could really change the culture that we have. I mean, and it's not just a Trinidad thing, it's a worldwide thing, where we start prioritizing our health from a diet perspective, because I mean, if you look at the average diet, it's really, really terrible.
But the thing is, as you said, so many things affect a cancer diagnosis, right? Many things. But so if it is, you think that you have family history, as you said, your diet, if you're obese, all these things play a part, right? But you have to do whatever you can. You can't just sit there and say, well, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything. No, you can't.
Because the first thing people say is that I'm afraid.
Yes.
But
you're going to be even more afraid if you find out you're stage 4 because you've literally sat on it.
This is it. And it's just like, why? Don't be afraid. You need to get it done. It's better to know than not to.
Cancer is not a death sentence. And I am repeating this. I hate when people say it, but it's not a death sentence it once was. But again, a lot of things come into play here. How early were you diagnosed? What is your treatment plan like? If you're in the public healthcare, is the treatment available? Different
because
doctors
I do
are
know
different.
that
there are shortages sometimes,
so
and
imagine
people
you
go
need
without
chemotherapy
treatment.
and you literally can't get it because they don't have it in the public health system.
Even with my radiation, I finished chemo in April. I would have had surgeries in June and July, and I did radiation this year. That's long, and once time is passing, you are putting yourself at risk for recurrence, for spread, and we have a high recurrence rate in Trinidad. We actually, I think, have the highest breast cancer rate in the Caribbean. Right, if I'm not mistaken. So we need to look into these things. You know, research needs to be done.
And one thing that you had posted about, and it's something that I'm genuinely an advocate for, and I'm not saying this because I make zero commission on it, but I literally have to say this because I am a huge advocate for health insurance and critical illness insurance. And honestly, I took out my first health insurance plan when I was 21 years old.
Right.
I was literally working for a stipend. There were times I genuinely could not eat, but I
Yeah.
made sure I had health
Yeah.
insurance. So I mean, I say that to people who they're like, oh, they prioritize other things, and they're like, oh, I
No,
can't afford it.
it's-
If you can't afford health insurance and critical illness
Yes.
insurance, how are you going to afford private treatment if you cannot get it in the public health system? And I know you
Yeah.
had posted about
Yes,
that.
so I have been trying to speak to people as
Yeah.
well, but again, people only going to listen to how much they want to listen to. But I have met many people personally who
Yeah.
luckily they had insurance and they
Yeah.
were at least able to do part of their treatment, and then they filtered into the public health care. Some of them were lucky to do all of their treatment.
Yep.
Because it is different, okay? You can't
It
get
must
away
be.
from it.
It
It's
must
different.
be.
The number of patients that NRC has to see daily, and I must say though, there are some nurses and doctors and staff in general there who are amazing,
Yeah.
right? But it is a lot. The
The
system is
public health
overwhelmed.
system is overwhelmed,
Yeah,
exactly.
right?
And you
So-
don't want to, you don't want to have a barbecue. You don't
Yeah,
have to have curry
exactly,
cues and
yes.
literally put
No,
the
it's-
faith
yeah.
of your life in that. And
Exactly.
with critical illness, because I honestly, I'm with Guardian Life. I
Right.
absolutely love them. They have been nothing but good to me the few times that I needed them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, it's not just about having insurance. It's about having adequate insurance.
Exactly.
And not just, I mean, sorry to say, like some fly-by-night companies, because you get what you pay for.
Yes,
So if
yes.
you pay like, okay, I don't know what it is, but like if you pay something ridiculous, you can't expect that you will be
Yeah.
covered
No,
for
but-
certain things.
okay,
So it's
so-
also the coverage. But part of critical illness is that I believe, and I mean I could be wrong, that there is a payout once you're diagnosed, unfortunately, with certain things, and I believe cancer is one of them.
Right.
You automatically get paid, like, I don't know if it's $1 million. Don't hold me to this,
No,
please. Call
no,
Guardian
no.
Life. And actually,
Those are
last
different
year,
plans,
I
they're
feel so
different
strongly
plans,
about
so-
it last year. I had an entire show
Right.
speaking about health insurance because I think as women, and I mean as people, you
Yeah.
need to safeguard yourself, and you
Yeah.
need to be in a position where if something happens, because you can't just like have your head in the clouds
No,
and be like,
yeah.
oh, nothing is ever going to happen to
Exactly,
me. If
yeah.
anything happens, whether it's an accident, whether it's a diagnosis, I mean, look how many people have cancer. You need heart surgery, anything like that.
Right.
Where are you going to get the money?
Yeah.
Are you really going to go on a wait list because the public health system is overwhelmed and wait for 2 years to get something that you need to save your life, or have to try to have a
Correct.
curry queue, have to have a barbecue, whatever it is, literally so that you can live for your family?
Yes. Correct. It's a lot. And because like I have a friend, she has MS, a really amazing woman, totally fighting through, and she has to wait until September for an MRI that she needs to decide her treatment.
Yeah.
That and where are you going to get an MRI is expensive. When I had to do my spinal MRI, a full spinal MRI was nearly $10,000.
Wow.
And I did fundraisers for all these things. So
But I think St. James itself, they're overwhelmed.
No,
on-
they
I
are.
actually, I went
Yeah.
once and I could not wait.
Yeah.
I said I would come back because I used to go to Sangre Grande, and honestly, it was the nurses there were awesome.
Yeah, I've heard
And-
great things about just
and-
at least
So
the
their clinic is
attitudes.
I would
much
never
smaller
wait.
though, right?
I
So
would-
they
yeah.
see like they have like 8 chemo patients a day, whereas St. James is probably seeing 50, 60 chemo patients a
No, but
day,
I'm
right?
just saying that.
No, but no,
if
I
you decide,
understand, yeah.
like I went to St. James and I could not wait because
Yeah.
they said, I got there at 8 o'clock in the morning and they told me I'd literally leave around 3 o'clock.
Yes, correct.
You'd get through around that time. And I went, somebody advised me to go to Grande, and I started treatment there, and I will tell you, the doctors there were excellent
They are.
and very patient, and I have never waited for more than an hour to go inside.
I had to go to Randy first before I started treatment, and one thing I think that they do that everywhere should do, all the clinics, they do counseling before
Yeah.
you start chemo.
That's
And-
fantastic.
Yes, they
and
do.
they allow you to bring your
Correct.
caregiver with you to
Correct.
explain to them
Yeah.
what to
What
expect.
expect?
And
Yeah.
some people go through life-threatening things with chemo, and they don't know it's life-threatening because everybody just thinks chemo is really bad,
Yeah.
right?
So you don't know at
But-
what
yeah,
point it's life threatening.
Exactly.
So guys, I'm gonna have to pause you
Yes.
here. I'm gonna have to wrap up now.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I know it was a difficult show for all of us, even more so for you guys because you're actually in it.
Thanks
But
for
thank
having
you
us.
I think it's a message that we need to have out there because we need to give support to moms, and we also need to, as women, prioritize your health and prioritize making these tests that we spoke about, and even just like blood tests, blood work, those
Correct,
things. You need to
yes.
know what's going on
Yeah.
with your
Correct,
body
yes.
because, I mean, especially you have to live for your kids, right? I mean, you have to live for yourself, but if you have kids, that's a whole different
Yeah.
consideration. So, guys, I want to share an event with you guys because it's, as you know, or as some of you may know, I am a huge advocate against well, for against domestic violence. And one of the persons that I've met along that journey is Miss Kamika McClatchy, and she is the founder of Rise, Women Rediscover Your Strength. And Rise, in conjunction with some other amazing people, have put on this production. It's a theatrical production called Eve, and it's going to be playing in the Central Bank Auditorium from the 26th and 27th of May. All the proceeds go to the domestic violence, to certain domestic violence victims. And, you know, it really is such an amazing cause. Kamika will be a guest on this show probably within the next couple months, sorry. And you know, she is truly an advocate and a warrior. Her story is absolutely incredible, and she is an inspiration to women everywhere. So please, I'm certain that this is going to be a phenomenal production, and I know it's going to also change your perspective in how you see domestic violence. So please support if you can. It's an extremely worthy cause. And that's it for us. So next week we are talking mental health. As you may know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's also something that is very close to my heart, having had my own experiences. Struggling with depression some years ago, and well, you know, I'm fine now, but it really was a very dark time, and since then I have been huge on breaking the stigma and the taboo and getting people to talk about what's happening and seek help and just supporting people who are struggling. So we're going to speak to Sally Khan. I know she is a veteran warrior, and she is going to talk about her own experience with clinical depression, having been diagnosed, I believe, about 18 years now. And she's made it her business to share a similar message that we need to start breaking the stigma. And we'll also be joined by Dr. Valini Pandit, who's going to give us some insights as a professional in dealing with clinical depression. So stay tuned for that. And as I mentioned earlier, at the end of the show, when the show wraps up, we are going to show an informative breast self-exam video, and I think it's something that we as women need to see. We need to learn how to listen to our bodies and examine our bodies on a regular basis, so that if, God forbid, something is wrong with us, we can pick it up as soon as possible and get the best possible outcome. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for joining us this evening on Everything Woman. I will see you next week. Have a good night.